The scorching. They called us feral sapiens, not a compliment. Not even an insult worth remembering. Just a taxonomic footnote in the Galactic archive, filed somewhere between primitive tool users and self-destructive curiosities. For 300 cycles, the 12 empires watched Earth from the void, studying our wars, our art, our desperate climb toward the stars. They watched us split atoms and dream of warp drives, and they laughed. We were entertainment, a reality show for immortal beings. Then we reached too far. The day humanity activated its first experimental warp signature, the galaxy stopped laughing. Within 48 hours, the scorching began. It started at dawn in Geneva. The sky didn't darken, it burned. Plasma lances fell like rain, each strike precise enough to vaporize city blocks while leaving the surrounding terrain intact. This wasn't war. This was pruning. The Vryn Directorate led the assault, their cathedral ships hanging in orbit like guillotine blades, while the other 11 empires watched and nodded approval. Beijing fell in minutes. New York lasted an hour. Moscow simply vanished, replaced by a glass crater that reflected the burning sky. Captain Elena Reeves was in Colorado when the mountains started screaming. She'd been on leave, visiting her daughter at the Air Force Academy when the first lance hit Denver. The shockwave threw her Jeep 300 meters. When she crawled from the wreckage, the entire Front Range was ablaze, and the sky was full of ships that looked like cathedrals built from nightmares. Her daughter was ash. The academy was a crater. Elena stood in the burning snow and watched the world end. But humanity had learned one thing from 10,000 years of killing each other. When extinction comes knocking, you don't open the door, you dig deeper. Across the planet, old protocols activated. Military commanders who'd planned for alien invasion since the Cold War finally got their nightmare scenario. The problem was, every plan assumed humanity would have time. Time to mobilize, time to unite, time to fight back. The scorching gave them 6 hours. By the time the sun set on that first day, 4 billion people were dead. The Vryn Directorate transmitted a simple message in every human language. You reached beyond your cage. This is correction. Survive if you can, evolve if you dare, but never reach again. Then they left. All 12 empires, departing as suddenly as they'd arrived, leaving Earth burning and broken beneath a sky full of ash. They thought it was over. They were wrong. Beneath the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, past the old NORAD bunkers that tourists used to visit, there was a facility that didn't exist on any map. Its code name was Black Forge, and it had been waiting for this day since 1952, when the first UFO crashed in New Mexico and military scientists realized we weren't alone, and we were hopelessly outgunned. Elena Reeves found Black Forge 3 weeks after the scorching, following emergency protocols that led her through collapsed tunnels and past security systems that still functioned, despite the apocalypse outside. When she finally reached the main chamber, she found 200 survivors, engineers, physicists, soldiers, and one very old man who introduced himself as Dr. Marcus Webb. "Welcome to humanity's last middle finger," Webb said, gesturing at the cavern behind him. Elena stared. The cavern stretched for miles, carved from living rock over 7 decades. And suspended in the center, held by gravitational clamps and surrounded by fusion reactors that hummed with barely contained power, was a weapon, not a gun. Not a missile. Something older. Something simpler. A railgun. But calling it a railgun was like calling the sun a light bulb. The barrel alone was 8 kilometers long, carved from the mountain itself and lined with superconducting rings that glowed with trapped lightning. The breech assembly was the size of a stadium, and the ammunition, Elena could see them stacked in reinforced silos, were tungsten telephone poles, each one massing 50 tons and machined to tolerances that would make a Swiss watchmaker weep. "We've been building this for 70 years, Webb explained, his voice carrying across the cavern. "Every black budget, every conspiracy theory, every dollar that went missing from defense spending. It all came here." "Why?" Elena asked, though she already knew. "Because we always knew they were out there, and we always knew that when they came, they'd come to kill us." Webb's eyes were bright with something between madness and genius. "So we built something that could kill back." Elena walked closer to the weapon. Heat radiated from the fusion cores, and she could feel the magnetic fields pulling at the metal in her uniform. "Does it work?" Webb smiled. "We're about to find out." The VRIN Directorate maintained a monitoring station in high orbit, a small outpost to ensure humanity's compliance. 200 crew, mostly automated systems, just watching the ashes cool and making sure no human technology sparked back to life. They never saw it coming. Black Forge fired at 0300 UTC on January 7, 2067 to 91. Days after the scorching, the Railgun's electromagnetic pulse shattered every window within 50 kilometers. The tungsten projectile accelerated through 8 kilometers of barrel in 0.3 seconds, exiting at 98% of light speed. It punched through atmosphere in a column of superheated plasma, leaving a temporary hole in the sky that looked like God's own spear. The VRIN station didn't even have time to raise shields. The impact released energy equivalent to 500 megatons. The station didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, converted instantly to expanding plasma and radiation. The shockwave was visible from Earth, a brief new star blooming in the night sky. In Black Forge, alarms screamed as the Railgun's capacitors recharged. Elena Reeves, now wearing a general's star salvaged from a dead world, stood before the firing console and whispered the words that would echo across the galaxy. Reload. The silence breaks. The VRIN Directorate received the distress signal 4.2 seconds after their monitoring station ceased to exist. By the time the electromagnetic scream reached the nearest relay, there was nothing left to monitor but expanding debris and radiation signatures that made their analysts' scales turn pale. High Admiral Kessex was reviewing trade negotiations when the report arrived. He read it 3 times, certain there was an error. The monitoring station had been equipped with quantum-shielded armor capable of withstanding direct hits from fusion warheads. It had point defense systems, early warning arrays, and a crew trained for every contingency. It had lasted exactly 0 seconds. Impossible, Kessex said, his translator rendering the word in flat, emotionless tones. The humans have no weapons. We verified this. Their orbital infrastructure was destroyed. Their manufacturing capacity is gone, my lord, his intelligence officer interrupted, which is why this makes no sense. The energy signature indicates a kinetic impact at relativistic velocity. The humans don't have particle accelerators capable of. They barely have electricity, Kessex snapped. 90 days ago, we reduced their civilization to ash. They're dying in caves. They're eating their own dead. They cannot. The second shot fired. This time, Black Forge had a different target. The Railgun's barrel adjusted 3 degrees, recalculated trajectories, and fired at a Threxian survey ship conducting atmospheric analysis over the Pacific Ocean. The ship's captain had exactly enough time to register an unusual magnetic signature before 50 tons of tungsten, traveling at 294,000 kilometers per second, turned her vessel into a brief, bright memory. In Black Forge, Elena Reeves watched the impact through jury-rigged satellite feeds. The explosion bloomed like a flower made of death, debris scattering across orbital lanes. That's 2, she said quietly. How many can we fire before they respond? Doctor, Webb stood beside her, his hands shaking as he input new coordinates. The capacitors need 90 minutes between shots. We've got ammunition for 63 more rounds. After that, he shrugged. After that, we're out of telephone poles. 63 shots, Elena repeated. 63 chances to remind them we exist. Or 63 chances to make them angry enough to finish what they started, Webb countered. We just killed 2 of their ships. They'll come back, and when they do, then we die fighting. Elena's voice was cold. Better than dying in the dark, waiting for the air recyclers to fail. Across the facility, the survivors worked with desperate efficiency. Engineers monitored fusion reactors that were never meant to run continuously. Physicists calculated trajectories for targets millions of kilometers away. Soldiers, most of them the last remnants of Earth's military forces, stood guard over a weapon that represented humanity's final declaration of existence. They all knew the truth. Black Forge wasn't a military installation. It was a tombstone. A monument built from spite and tungsten, erected so that when humanity finally died, the galaxy would at least remember our name. But Elena Reeves had no intention of dying quietly. Target the Koresh relay station in the asteroid belt, she ordered, the one coordinating their survey fleets. If we're going to send a message, Let's make it impossible to ignore. The third shot fired 6 hours later. The Koresh relay was a massive structure, a communications hub the size of a small moon that coordinated traffic for 7 different species. It was considered invulnerable, protected by distance and anonymity. The Koresh didn't believe in military defenses. They believed in being too useful to attack. The tungsten round punched through 3 kilometers of relay infrastructure, severing connections that had existed for 6,000 years. The relay didn't explode. It simply went dark, leaving 17 star systems suddenly blind and mute. Now the galaxy was paying attention. Within 12 hours, the Council of 12 convened for the first time since the scorching. They gathered, in virtual space, their avatars representing species that had ruled the stars for millennia: the crystalline Koresh, the ancient Vryn, the hive-minded Zethrin, and 9 others who'd watched humanity's rise with amusement and its fall with satisfaction. "The humans have a weapon," the Vryn High Admiral reported, his avatar flickering with agitation. "Kinetic, primitive, but devastatingly effective. 3 confirmed strikes, 3 total losses." "How?" The Koresh representative's voice hummed with electronic harmonics. "We reduced their infrastructure to rubble. Their technology level should be pre-industrial. They should be focused on survival, not building weapons capable of relativistic kill strikes," the Threxian observer finished. "Yet here we are, 3 of our assets destroyed by a species we declared extinct." "Not extinct," High Admiral Kessex corrected. "Contained. Neutralized. There's a difference." "Is there?" The Zethrin swarm mind spoke with 1,000 voices. "Because from where we're observing, the humans just demonstrated they can strike anywhere in the inner system with 0 warning. They have range. They have accuracy. And based on energy readings, they have ammunition to spare." Silence fell across the virtual chamber. For 300 years, these beings had watched humanity like scientists studying bacteria in a petri dish. They'd found us fascinating, dangerous, but ultimately manageable. The scorching was supposed to be a correction, a reminder that the galaxy had rules, and species that broke them faced consequences. Nobody had planned for the bacteria to shoot back. "Recommendations?" Kessex asked finally. The Vryn military doctrine specialist materialized, his avatar sharp with certainty. "Full orbital bombardment. Identify the weapon's location and eliminate it. We have the firepower. We have the fleet positioning. 1 strike, properly executed, ends this. And if we miss?" The Koresh representative's query carried an edge of concern. "If their weapon is mobile, or if they have multiple installations, or if they don't." Kessex's certainty was absolute. "Our intelligence indicates a single facility, heavily fortified but stationary. 1 strike. 1 target. The human problem ends permanently." "Does it?" The Zethrin swarm mind's question rippled with complexity. "Because we just witnessed something unprecedented. A species reduced to Stone Age survival, somehow maintaining a weapon system that requires industrial civilization to operate. They should be dying. Instead, they're killing. That suggests resources we didn't account for, organization we didn't predict, and most concerning, motivation we didn't understand. They're angry," the Threxian observer said simply. "We killed their world. They're striking back. It's emotional, irrational." "Is it?" Elena Reeves would have appreciated the Zethrin's response. "Or is it the rational response of a species that finally understands its place in the galaxy? They're not fighting to win. They're fighting to be remembered." The council debate continued for 6 more hours, cycling through strategies and scenarios. Some advocated for complete extermination. Others suggested negotiation. A few even proposed studying this new human behavior before eliminating it. None of them realized the debate was already irrelevant. Because while they talked, Black Forge fired again, and again, and again. The 4th shot destroyed a Vryn supply depot on Phobos. The 5th obliterated a Threxian mining operation in the belt. The 6th, the one that made the entire galaxy stop and recalculate, struck a target 50 million kilometers away with such precision that it threaded through a defensive satellite grid and hit a command ship's reactor core. The explosion was visible from Mars. In Black Forge, Dr. Webb stared at his calculations with something approaching religious awe. That shouldn't be possible. The targeting solution required compensating for solar wind, gravitational perturbations, from 3 planets and the target's evasive maneuvering. We just made a shot that violates half the laws of ballistics. Elena smiled grimly. Maybe humanity's good at breaking laws. The 7th shot fired at 400 UTC, 96 hours after the first. This time the target was different. Not a ship, not a station, not infrastructure. The tungsten round, traveling at near light speed, struck an uninhabited moon in the Kuiper Belt, a moon that happened to be sacred to the Vryn Directorate, a shrine world where their species had first achieved spaceflight 6,000 years ago. The impact was catastrophic. The moon didn't explode, it shattered, breaking into 17 major fragments and a debris field that would take centuries to settle. The Vryn's holiest site, their monument to achievement and evolution, reduced to cosmic gravel. The message was clear: we can reach anything. We can destroy anything. And we remember everything you took from us. High Admiral Kessex watched the Shrine World die from his flagship, and for the first time in his 300-year career, he felt something the Vryn had long evolved past. Fear. Mobilize the fleet, he ordered. Find that weapon, and end this before what, my lord? His tactical officer asked. Kessex didn't answer immediately. He was watching the debris field, thinking about the impossible shots, the perfect targeting, the ruthless efficiency. The humans were supposed to be dying. They were supposed to be broken. Instead, they were learning. Before they figure out they're winning, he said finally. In Black Forge, Elena Reeves stood before a tactical display, showing the positions of every alien asset in the inner system. Her staff watched her, waiting for orders, waiting for the next target. How many rounds left, she asked. 56, General.